Okay, hi everyone. So this live stream is for the essay correction. So basically, each week I ask students to write an essay in response to a task 2 question, and I put all of them into a draw, pick out a name, and give that person a full correction. So that'll be full essay corrected, all the vocab, all the grammar, talk about the content, talk about the structure. Tell them what scores they would expect, and explain how they would improve on those scores, the main things that they need to do to improve their scores. Hey, Hamza. Hello, mentor. Oh, that's a nice name. Thank you. So, I'm not really teaching you how to write task 2 essays in this video, in this live stream, but I have created lessons already where I show you how to do that. So if you're not already familiar with those lessons, I'd advise you to jump in on those. Also, there's 20% off my writing course at the moment until tomorrow, and I still have a small number of places left. And as well, the people coming in. So what I expected was people who need help with writing to want to join my writing course. But a lot of people, they were looking for support with reading, listening, and speaking as well. So what I've done with the students who've joined so far is I've included 2 practice speaking tests for free, and then support with reading and listening as well. You know, it's difficult for me to turn people away when they're looking for help. So there are a small number of places left, and if you're interested, just let me know. You can email me at lar@completetestsuccess.com. Send me a DM, a direct message on Facebook, or just say you're interested in the video or reach out to me, whatever way. Hi, Jacqueline. Good to see you here. And Delitzo, you have a different name today. Good to see you here. Okay, so that's basically it. Let's choose our winner and we'll get started. So if you entered, you will see your name here. And then I'll just click the spin button and it'll pull out a winner for me at random. So we have Sarwa. Great. Okay, well done, Sarwa. And Sarwa has her test in about 2 weeks, if I recall. She was in my speaking live stream yesterday, but I think she said the 22nd, but I don't have a fantastic memory, so I don't remember exactly. Anyway, Sarwa's the winner here today. Okay, so I just need a moment to grab Sarwa's answer, and then we'll be ready to start. So for those of you who are joining me live, or any of you watching the recording, this isn't passive. You don't just have to watch it. Get involved. If I say there's something wrong with Sarwa's answer, but you don't understand why it's wrong, you can ask for an explanation. If I'm giving her scores, but you don't understand why it's the scores that it is, or if you have any other questions that come up, feel free to ask. So generally what I do in this live stream is I'll correct one paragraph, I'll come back, answer questions anyone has, do another paragraph, and come back again. So get involved. Make sure to ask whatever questions you have. Hey, Jashan, good to see you here. Hey, Rupinder, good morning to you. And Daniel Sarah, good morning. Nice to see you too. Okay. So let's have a look at this essay. Now, excuse me. I just need to set up my software. Just need to share the document with the essay on it. Okay. So here we go. This is what we're looking at. Now, the first thing I want to check is the length of Surwa's answer. So we're aiming for about 280 words. It doesn't have to be exactly that, but that's a good goal. Okay, this is 379 words. All right, that's way too long. Now, I always get the same excuse from students who write an essay that's 379 words long. They'll say, well, I did it in 40 minutes. Okay, that's fine, but the goal isn't to write an essay in 40 minutes. The goal is to get the highest possible score that you can in 40 minutes. And a big part of that is proofreading at the end. And proofreading will allow you to find all these small grammar and vocab mistakes that you know are wrong, but they're just slips. We all make slips when we're writing. So if you haven't given yourself an opportunity to correct as many of those mistakes as possible, you will not get the highest possible score, the highest score that you are capable of. So like that's, a 380 word essay compared to a 280 word essay, like it's not exactly quarter, but it's nearly, it's an extra 100 words. So it's not far off an extra quarter, even more actually. But just consider that and how much time that would have allowed for your proofreading to improve your score. Another issue with long essays is that you'll end up going off track. So your paragraphs, especially the body paragraphs, if you write too much, there's more of a chance that you'll go off topic or you'll repeat yourself. And both of those things are going to affect your task achievement and your coherence and cohesion score. So the short message that I'm trying to give you is aim for about 280. 380 is way too long, Surwa. Hi, Raquel. Wackel. And good morning to you, Facebook user. All right. So with that, let's have a look at the actual answer. And of course, we're starting with the introduction. So this is what we're looking for. Some people decide to live in the countryside even though they work in the city. So the paraphrase has to say that and nothing else. A number of people, no. Some means not everyone, but a number of means a few. So these have different meanings. That's not suitable. So a number of people go to work in the city, not at the city. So no, that's an incorrect preposition. Despite residing in small towns. So that would have to be plural, but also it's not the same meaning. The countryside is not the same as a town. So no, that paraphrase has basically not done what it needs to do. Like that vocab is wrong. This grammar is wrong. But the biggest issue is saying small town instead of countryside because that changes the meaning. So that's the biggest issue here. Okay. So the question, what are the benefits and disadvantages of this decision? So what I need is 2 benefits and 2 disadvantages, and I want those to be in my introduction. Also, they need to be specific and they need to be relevant. So the main advantages are as a result of the serenity of the environment and cost effectiveness. Okay, so cost effectiveness needs to be hyphenated like this. So that's a mistake. The main advantages are this whole thing as a result of the serenity. That doesn't make sense. So when you say as the result of the serenity of the environment, and then you have to say what the main idea is. Whereas, so it's just a problem with the language. It's a language mistake. So really what you're saying is the advantage is the serenity of the environment. But if you're going to say as a result of the serenity of the environment, that means something else. So the main advantages are as a result of the serenity of the environment, people have better mental health. So your main idea would be mental health, and this is more of an explanation of it. You don't need to include an explanation at this point. And really, what we want to do is we want to delete this phrase here. So it should read: the main advantages are the serenity of the environment and cost effectiveness. So let me just do this. Are the serenity of the environment and cost effectiveness. And really we need to say and the cost effectiveness. Now, when we're using while, that's the second clause of a sentence, not a new sentence. So it has to be like this. While the disadvantages are the lack of job opportunities and amenities. Yep. And then no space between the full stop and the word before it. So no space there. Also, when you're writing your essays, make sure that you leave a line between each paragraph. So we want a line between each paragraph to show clearly where each one starts and each one ends. Now, looking from here, I can see the issue is that Sarwa doesn't know how to respond to this question type, because the body paragraphs, then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and she's writing it in the same way she would respond to an essay with 2 ideas or 3 ideas, where she's just giving the same amount of development as when there are 2 ideas, but that's not what you do. You still have 40 minutes. You still need to write about 280 words. So IELTS has told you to include more ideas. That does not mean you need to write a longer essay. You would respond to that by writing shorter, by your development being shorter. So for example, this here, we can see this paragraph looks more realistic. That's about what you would look for each of the 4 ideas, about that much writing to develop each one. However, I would include 2 advantages in one paragraph and 2 disadvantages in another paragraph, instead of writing 4 individual paragraphs. So instead of writing 1 paragraph for each of the ideas. Okay, so let's come back. Let's see, does anybody have any questions here? Faraskin is present. Good to see you here. I like that little roll call. Okay, so far the main ideas are appropriate, so that's good. We're looking at language errors, a lot of grammar mistakes. That thing with as a result of, that was quite confusing. That would be a problem with the coherence and cohesion, because when I read as a result of this, I'm expecting the main idea to come next, but no main idea came next. So then I had to rewind and read it again and say, okay, that as a result of shouldn't be there, and this is actually the main idea. And that's a lot to do with coherence and cohesion. Is, are you forcing the reader, or the examiner in this case, to look again and to figure out what's being said? The structure, the pronouns, the cohesive devices, those are all part of coherence and cohesion. But when you're getting them right, this can still be a factor. So when you make the reader work to understand. So that's basically the biggest issue I've seen so far with this essay. Okay. So it makes sense to discuss the ideas in the same order as the introduction. So I'm expecting the next paragraph to be about the serenity of the environment. Living in the municipalities has loads is informal. That's fine for speaking. It's lots of benefits, but it is surprising to see quite a number of people moving to the farmlands to stay there. Farmlands wouldn't be the same as countryside. Stay there because of the importance of living in such places, and one of them is the serene environment. Okay, you don't need to say anything outside of the exact main idea. And I know not all academic writing is like this, but in English, there's no filler. You just say exactly what you need to say. So talking about like this whole thing about there are lots of benefits in the cities, and it's surprising that they moved to the countryside. None of that's relevant, because of the importance in living in such places, and one of them is the serene environment. So no, like I would delete all of that. All you want in your topic sentence is you want to say what the paragraph is about. So it would be one advantage of living in the countryside, serene environment. That's what a topic sentence should look like. It should just repeat the exact idea that we had in the topic sentence. Nothing extra, no filler, no introduction, no, looking at both sides or anything. Just say what you need to say, and then move into the development in the next sentence. In the countryside, there are few number of people living there. There are fewer people living there, and so you need the subject, because the subject isn't the same as the first. The first clause, the subject is there are fewer people. The second clause is not there are fewer people, so you need to write the subject. It is mostly quiet at all times in, let's say, those neighborhoods. Moreover, there are numerous trees planted almost everywhere. Okay. Enhancing adequate ventilation. No, ventilation is like how much air gets in and out of a house. Adequate, enhancing adequate. I mean, I know what you're trying to say. Enhancing air quality. Makes the atmosphere cool all the time, and also there aren't too many cars to pollute the environment, making it conducive to stay. All right, so this is 3 ideas. So here we have in the countryside, there are fewer people living there, and that makes it more quiet. Okay, so that makes sense. There are fewer people, and it's quieter because there are fewer people. So that's an explanation of the serene environment, and that's suitable. But you have to, when you're talking about the serene environment, you can't start talking about other ideas. So here we have talking about air quality and talking about pollution from traffic. Those are not the serene, that's not a development of the serene environment. These are other main ideas. So if you had put these 2 main ideas in here in your introduction, if you had decided to discuss either of these 2 main ideas as your main ideas, that's fine. But as you've already indicated what your 4 main ideas are, these are irrelevant. These do not belong in your essay. So in fact, I would just delete those. They don't belong there. Okay. So let me just see. Does anybody have any questions at the moment? Hey, Sharon Preet. Good morning to you. So there are a few of you here. If you don't understand the problems, or if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Like I said, I'll pop in and out and just check what questions you have. So next paragraph, we looked at serene environment. Next paragraph should be about cost effectiveness. Okay. Furthermore, living in the village. So what we're seeing here is Surwa is trying desperately not to use the word countryside. She's used the word small town. She's used the word, I can't remember what word she had here, but I replaced it. She used the word village. So over and over again, her attempts to paraphrase countryside are not effective, and it's really going to damage the score, because now the reader doesn't know what the essay is about anymore. Is it about the countryside? Is it about villages? Is it about like, you have to choose. So living in the countryside, so I'll just change that. Cost effective since you do not spend much money with regards to food, accommodation, transport, uh, or transport, to name but a few. I don't use phrases like this, to name but a few, or etc. and so on. Don't use those types of phrases. Just finish your list. Spend much more money with regards to you know, expenses such as, like that. So just say such as or like, and then give 2 or 3 examples. For instance, when I was in the countryside, I was able to save enough money because things are always cheaper as compared to living in the city. One issue I have here, because things are cheaper. For instance, when I was in there, it was cheaper. No, you haven't really explained it. Why are they cheaper? You've just said they are cheaper, but why are they cheaper in the countryside? So no, this isn't this development isn't effective. Like if you say like, my favorite color is pink. Why is that your favorite color? Because I like it. That's not an explanation. So you need to be able to give a reason for it. Here you haven't given a reason. You've just said it's cost effective because you don't need to spend money. Well, you're just explaining what cost effective means. You're not explaining why these things are cheaper. So this isn't effective. Now, looking at your first idea, this development was relevant. So that was looking like you were on target for a band 7 for task achievement. So if you had been able to do that for all of them, but at this point, this is just a main idea without any development. And then I know your example is saying, I lived and it was cheaper. Things are always cheaper. No, but you're not saying why. You're just saying it happened. No, it's not. It's not appropriate. Okay. Okay. So, oh yes, that was my other point here. So it's saying you don't spend as much money with regards to expenses such as food, accommodation, or transport. And it's this idea here, transport. This doesn't reflect the context of the question, because the question said some people decide to live in the countryside even though they work in the city. So if I'm living in the countryside and I need to commute to the city every day, I don't see how that would save me money on transportation. Surely, I mean, it sounds like you're discussing people who live in the countryside and don't commute to the city every day, but surely from the context of the question, these people are surely spending more on transport than their counterparts. Okay. How much effective is to practice online available IELTS mock tests? I don't really understand the question. How effective is it to practice online IELTS? Okay. Probably not very effective. I'm not sure what part of the test you're discussing. But the thing is, with speaking, practicing IELTS tests, it can help you. It can help you prepare for what to expect, especially in part 2. you might need to practice developing your ideas. You might need to practice making your notes. So if that's what you need to do, if you find that when you try to answer the questions, you're lacking in development or you go off topic, so you can practice those and that'll help. But if you need to improve your fluency, your vocab, your grammar, your pronunciation, doing practice tests won't help, because you should go and improve your fluency, or whichever one you have a problem with. So if we're talking about speaking, then there are certain instances where doing practice tests will help. But in general, what you need to do is get feedback from an IELTS expert such as myself. I'll tell you where you have a problem, and then you should focus on that. For reading and listening, where students will normally go wrong is they'll buy a Cambridge IELTS book. Well, let's say they'll buy 5 Cambridge IELTS books. So that's like 20 practice reading tests. And they'll do one, and then they'll go, okay, I'll do another one, and now I'll do another one, and now I'll do another one. And they think like practice makes perfect, but it doesn't. If you do one and you get a band 6.5, you do another one, you maybe get a band 7, you do another one, you get band 7, another one, band 7. You'll get to the point where you're familiar with the format and your test scores won't improve any further. So for reading and listening, the important thing is to analyze your mistakes and understand what's stopping you from getting a higher score. So, of course, doing practice tests is important, but not if you don't take action on your mistakes. And the other thing, then, you're talking about IELTS mock tests online, and the vast majority of practice listening and practice reading tests that you will find online, the vast majority of those are not official. If you go to IELTS.org, IDP, British Council, Cambridge, they have a small number of practice tests, and they are the correct standard quality format. But if you go onto other websites where they've just got like a million, exaggeration, but they have like 100 free listening tests or reading tests, generally they'll have created those tests themselves. Very often the format of the questions isn't the same, and then another issue is that the difficulty level isn't the same. So if you do those free like fake tests, you might think you're capable of getting a band 8, but in the real test you're actually capable of a band 6.5 or 7. So you don't really understand what scores you're capable of if you're not using real tests. With writing, the main concern with writing that I get is confusion. So when students are using fake questions, they'll normally come to me and go, I can't figure out what to do with this question. It's like, well, because it doesn't follow the correct format of the test. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but you have to be careful that you're using your time effectively and not just doing test. If vocab is your issue, you can do tests until the end of time and you're not going to improve your score. So you need to be careful that you're focusing on your real weaknesses. Rupinder, in the case we have 4 ideas, I have a question. Is it compulsory to add examples in each idea? No, definitely not. What you need is development. So development can be an explanation or an example. And if there are 2 main ideas, it's normally easiest to include an explanation and an example. When there are 4 main ideas, sometimes an example will be okay, sometimes an explanation will be okay, whatever is suitable, as long as there is development. Development is essential, but not necessarily an example like that. Hi, Foon. Long time no see. Good to see you here. Sir, your every lecture are always helpful. I'm learning every time. Brilliant. Very good, Sharon Preet. Glad to hear it. And like I was saying, I have 20% off my course until tomorrow. And the way that works is more hands-on. It's one-on-one. I don't have group classes. Everything is one-on-one. So I work directly with each of my students, which is why I don't have that many places available. Hey, Rashan, good to see you here. Okay, so let's get back into Surwa's essay. So we've looked at the 2 advantages. Now the next paragraph should be about lack of job opportunities. Now, no, this is irrelevant and I didn't notice the first time. No, this is not suitable. I thought living in the countryside. Oh, we're talking about people who live in the countryside even though they work in the city. So the disadvantage is you have to work in the city. No, it does make sense. It does make sense. Because they only have to work. Yeah, no. It does make sense. Yeah. Okay. Okay. The downside of living in the farmland, again, countryside, you're really hurting your score with your desire not to use the word countryside there, Sarah, is the lack of job opportunities. Every good thing comes from the city, which is why people are moving there. No, you need to explain to me, why are there a lack of job opportunities in the countryside? You don't need to tell me, the benefit of living in the city. That's completely irrelevant. That's got nothing to do with it. Okay. It is difficult to find a job. Oh. Okay. It's difficult to find a job in the countryside since the opportunities are fewer. It also fills up quickly. Since there are fewer opportunities, the vacancies fill up quickly, are taken quickly. The vacancies are, since there are fewer opportunities, any available positions are filled. But this isn't relevant. So this is the outcome. This is telling me what happens when there are fewer opportunities, there are fewer positions. But I don't need to know what happens when there are fewer positions. I need to know, why are there fewer positions? So the explanation is, how or why does this happen? And a good way to work this is, like, if you say to yourself, like, because, does it make sense? So the downside of living in the countryside is the lack of job opportunities. Okay, there are a lack of job opportunities in the countryside because it's difficult to find a job. No. There are a lack of job opportunities because it's difficult to find a job. No, that doesn't make sense. There are a lack of job opportunities because there are fewer opportunities. No. There are a lack of job opportunities because any available positions are filled quickly. No. And then as a result, if you're talking about the result, you're not explaining your idea. People become frustrated and decide to move to the city where there are numerous job openings. But we already said that these people are working in the city. So no, this doesn't make sense. But like, look at it this way, like this one was relevant. The countryside is a more serene environment because fewer people live there. Because there are fewer people living there, and so it is mostly quiet at all times in those neighborhoods. Like, that makes sense. This is the how or why of this. Whereas when you look at this idea, you haven't explained it. You've just kind of talked about it, but you haven't talked about what you're expected to talk about. So the how or the why was missing. The explanation was missing here. Okay, that brings us to lack of amenities. Now, let's just see here. Does anyone have any questions first? Hey Maravik, good to see you here. Okay, so that brings us to the last paragraph. No, the last body paragraph about amenities. Last but not least is the lack of amenities. Okay, so that's fine. When it comes to resources, there are few of them in the interlands. No, it's just countryside. Making it difficult for residents to get access. So again, this isn't an explanation of why there are fewer resources. This is talking about the result of having fewer resources. So this is because there are fewer resources, it's harder to access them. Yeah, but why are there fewer resources? So you need to tell me, why are there fewer resources in the countryside? Why is that? Or how does that happen? Why does that happen? For instance, there are few healthcare facilities, which makes them difficult to access. When need arises. Again, this is the outcome, not an explanation, and it's not an example either. An example has to be, for example, where I live, there are few healthcare facilities. So your example should be based on the real world. It should sound like you're describing something that exists in the world or something that has happened. But this sentence is more an attempt at an explanation. So the cohesive device doesn't make sense here. In Ghana, okay, so that's an example. Here we go. It would be like that. For instance, in Ghana, most villages lack health facilities, and so if there is an emergency health situation, one must travel for miles before care is being rendered. No, before care is received. Okay. But again, this is the outcome. So like what we're looking for here, there's a lack of amenities. So why is there a lack of amenities in the countryside? Well, because fewer people live there, a business cannot make enough money. Therefore, businesses prefer to open somewhere where there is a more dense population, which means they'll have more customers, which means they'll have more profits. So that's why there are fewer amenities in the countryside. So you don't need to tell me the disadvantages of having fewer amenities. You need to tell me why there are fewer amenities in the countryside. Because businesses cannot make a profit because there aren't enough people there to purchase their items. Similarly here, why are there lack of job opportunities in the countryside? Well, it's similar because businesses need to be close to their customers, and therefore most businesses choose to open in more dense populations than the countryside. Therefore, so it's the same reason essentially. Living in the countryside is cost effective. I don't know, to be honest. I don't know why that's the case. Is it like the shops have cheaper rent, so they're able to sell their goods at cheaper prices? Is it because in the countryside, you can buy your food directly from the farmer instead of having to go to a supermarket, so there's less markup on the food that you're buying? I don't know, but that would be an explanation. Not just talking about the outcome. So the development is an issue, and Sarwa, the place at which you need to resolve this is when you're planning your essay. When you're planning your essay is when you need to do that. You should plan your essay, write down your ideas, make sure your main ideas are relevant, which they were, and then when you're considering how you will develop it, make sure that it is actually explaining. If it's an explanation, is it actually explaining? If it's an example, is it actually an example of the the main idea you're discussing? And then as well, is it all within the context of the question? Rupinder, I'm not going to look at anyone else's essays. I don't think that's fair for the other entrants. Hey Sharafat, how to avoid over explanation? Plan your essay first. You plan your essay first. You know what you're going to say before you start writing your essay. That will prevent you, because you're going to have one idea. You're going to say how you're going to explain it, and then it's not just a stream of consciousness. If you write your essay without a plan, you get to that point, you're like, what am I going to say now? Okay, I'll say this, and you start writing it, and then you realize that you weren't heading the direction you needed to go. You're kind of heading this way, and you need to try and bring it back to where at the end, your target is. So planning will make sure you're just very focused, very direct in everything that you say. That's absolutely essential. I know a lot of students don't want to write plans. They think, that I don't have enough time. That's an extra thing to do. But I can promise you, you write 2 or 3 plans. Once you get familiar with the process, you'll be able to turn out your essays much faster and with fewer vocab and grammar mistakes, because when you're writing your answer, you're giving your attention to the vocab and grammar, not giving your attention to the ideas. So I know it's a struggle. It's like, as an IELTS teacher, it's the most difficult thing is for me to convince students to write plans, because everyone goes, yep, definitely, I'll write a plan, and then they don't. So that for me is always a struggle, to convince students to write plans. And I could get a student to tell me 20 times that they will, and then they go into their IELTS test and like, oh, I don't need a plan, I'm fine. And the outcome is always the same. So do write a plan. If you're not already writing plans, start now. Okay, so the last thing then is we want a conclusion. To conclude, few people choose, does it say that? Some people, not few people. Some people choose to live in, you don't need an article, it's plural, in rural areas, in spite of working in urban areas, because the environment is conducive. That doesn't mean it. You have to be conducive to something. So what was the idea? Serenity. So no, the word it's conducive to means like the environment is conducive to relaxing, because it's not as noisy. Conducive to something. So you have to, the word conducive isn't used like that. And relatively cheaper. On the other hand, there are fewer jobs and resources. Yep. So that's a good conclusion. You've got everything you need there. All right. So scores here. Task achievement is band 6. And the big thing is you're not explaining the ideas. You're talking about the outcome. You're talking about the result. You're not explaining your ideas. This you need to overcome when you're planning your essay. If you're not planning your essays, start planning your essays. And especially the development is where you're going wrong. Now, in that first main idea, your development was appropriate, but in ideas 2, 3, and 4, it wasn't. So that, to improve your task achievement score, it has to be that. Coherence and cohesion. Actually, the organization is fine. It's not the organization that I would recommend. I would go with like this. I'd have my two body paragraphs. So one body paragraph for the advantages, one body paragraph for the disadvantages, but less development for each one. So I'm after deleting a lot of stuff from your essay already. And like unnecessary stuff. And that brings your essay down to 273 words. So you can see with the unnecessary stuff I deleted, that is an appropriate length. So the reason that your essay was an extra 100 words long is because you were talking about stuff that you didn't need to talk about. Now, having said that, organizing one idea in each paragraph does make sense, but the way I would do it, that they'll be quite short. So I like to put them together when it's 4 main ideas. Coherence and cohesion is band 6. It's mainly those parts that I didn't understand. There's especially that, like that where you said as a result of, that was quite confusing. And then your what? A few cohesive devices were used incorrectly. So that's band 6. The paragraphs were fine, the introduction was fine, the conclusion was fine, but a little bit confusing at times. Vocab, I'm going to have to give you a band 5 for vocab. You've got a nice range, and I think you can easily get a band 6 or higher in vocabulary, but you're just taking too many risks. You're trying desperately to use synonyms when they're not accurate. So it's your, basically it's this: your attempts to improve your vocab score are bringing down your vocab score. Your main focus has to be clear communication. Clear communication is far more important than variety of language. For variety of vocabulary, you're making too many mistakes, especially like your attempts not to use the word countryside did not work out well. If you had just used the word countryside 10 times, your essay would have been much better. And then the other words that I already mentioned and corrected, but you're just, no, because you're not communicating the ideas you need to communicate, that you're failing to communicate because of your vocab choice. Now, I know that's disappointing, and I know your test is coming up soon, but it's going to be easy to fix this, because it's not your lack of vocabulary knowledge. That's not the problem. It's your attempts to, kind of rig the test. You can't. Like, just make sure you're communicating clearly. You will get a higher vocab score. I have no doubt about that. Grammar, in general, you're fine. Your range is fine, but you have mistakes in pretty much every sentence, so you're not going to get a higher score than band 6. So overall for this, we're looking at a band 5.5 for that essay. I know that's disappointing, but it's better that you know that. And the big thing for you is going to be planning your essays more carefully and being more careful with your word choice, be that cohesive devices, vocab, trying to use synonyms, that type of thing. So it's not that you need to go away and learn a lot. It's that you just need to change your approach to writing the essay, and that's going to help you a lot. Okay, so that's all the feedback. Chile, sir, is it okay to add a background statement before your paraphrase introduction? I mean, it's okay, but it's not going to improve your score, so don't bother. There's a limited amount of time already. You only have 40 minutes. So don't go writing things that aren't going to improve your score. You've already got to analyze the question, plan your essay, write your essay, and proofread. You're like, that's a lot to do in 40 minutes. So instead of adding extra things, just do the bare minimum and do it properly. And you, like, just because your question says, is it okay? It is. It's not a problem. It won't bring down your score, but the examiner will just read it and go like, okay, like that's of no consequence. I need to find, the actual content to help me analyze what score this person should get. So I don't recommend it, but it's not a problem, but it's not a benefit. Okay, so that's it for now. I have my live feedback lesson later, so I'll see you guys there. Tomorrow I have a task 2 live stream, and like I said, the 20% off my course ends tomorrow, but there are only a small number of places left, so make sure to reach out to me about that soon, because I'm not sure how much longer those places will be there. Okay, so that's it for now. Good to see you all here. Sarwa, I hope you're not too disappointed with that. And yeah, talk to you all next time. Take care of yourselves. Bye.